So, as Charlotte said, welcome to those of you who are joining us for our daily online practice. We also are in the midst of a retreat after the election. So, you'll be hearing somewhat of our topic today, which is extremes and the middle way. So, I'm going to start off with some context for the topic. Because in my experience, I have seen the extremes showing up on a global level, especially when we've had a tragedy or when somebody has died or something has died, our aspirations or what feels like our values, when people are grieving a loss, that this is often where I really see the extremes at play. So after 9/11, after and during the pandemic, in wars, school shootings, floods, droughts, the things that we're really living with today, climate crisis, these are on a global level, this election and other elections. This is a time where we're really seeing extremes and divisiveness.
And Trump, our president-to-be, has stated many extreme intentions, and we don't know if, how, when he'll carry them through, which ones he'll carry through, how he'll carry them through. And we don't actually know what his real intentions were or what was intended to motivate his base. We don't know so much. We don't know if and what forces will be able to mitigate these intentions. And we too might have extreme intentions. And our basic stance is that these extremes are best known and really well sat with. I mean that in the meditative sense, but I mean it in the more general sense before acting.
There's sometimes a hope that a middle way will just get us out of extremes and that we won't have to really get to know them or play in that world of extremes, that there's a sense of just going with moderation and that we could bypass some of them. But like, for example, one extreme or not extreme, one directive we have in our practice is to become more tolerant with the diversity of our experience. And as we become more tolerant, does the goal then become to always be tolerant? Because, for example, I'm having difficulty being tolerant of intolerant views. There becomes a point where tolerance actually isn't going to lead to wholesome prosperity. It's going to lead to more harm, and that scares me. So it's better to know our certainties, because I feel pretty certain about this. It's something that I'm holding within myself, and learning to discern how and when to act on some of our certainties.
So now we're going to play off a little section of our book, or we edited it because we have the right to edit our own book for this purpose. But I think we came up with a somewhat original take on the middle way when we named, in the book, we named 6 dialectics. And we sort of saw the middle way as, playing within the continuum of these dialectics. But in this talk this morning, we're only going to address 2 of those. And we hope they'll be helpful. We don't think they're absolute truths about meditation or about life. They were just ways we figured out to sort of cut a pie, let's say, of, meditative and life experience. And we have the view that knowing and reflecting on dialectics, the ones we came up with, the ones you come up with, can really help us being completely tossed in tension and opposition. We're still maybe somewhat tossed. But what I'm really talking about here is, not getting stuck in black and white thinking, everything's all good or all bad, everything's all right or all wrong.
Right, because a dialectic is kind of this two extremes, two, opposites, and then the middle way is kind of between those two extremes. And when you're at an extreme, we have found it hard to question ourselves when we're at an extreme. We're on fire with like a Nelly's chili pepper that she overdid in her soup and last night. Like there's a way that it's too hot to handle. And at that point, although some rice helped with it, from what I heard, but the sense that when we're on fire, how can we sit more quietly with this, and how can we restrain our certainty at that time? That it may not be the time where we can really question ourselves or go into a kind of historical context and expect ourselves to be able to think logically through our emotions at that point.
I want to say one more thing about the middle way, because it's often said that way, the middle way, as though there is a middle way.
Mm-hmm.
No, there is all kinds of things in the middle. And as we said, sometimes maybe we even need to be we do need to be at the extremes, I'd say, to learn more about the continuum, and also because that's the conditions at play right then in our lives, in our body minds. So it's not the middle way, it's sort of a course correction. When we're at extremes, the hope is that there's a bit of course correction, and we sort of can come a little away from the extremes, at least not wholeheartedly remain in the extremes.
Well, and we have a practice that leans in the direction of conditionality and finding the conditions that support the extremes, that actually allow something to continue. And we wrote a statement in the book, conditionality questions certainty and quiets the fires of extremes. And that's the basis of our practice, is knowing more conditions, knowing what supports the fires of certainty that we hold in our heart.
So we decided to, as I said, pull out 2 of the 6 that we wrote about in the book. And the 2 that we chose were the extremes of the continuum, the dialectics of idealizing, and the other side of that, demonizing. And then the other one we'll talk about is experimenting and being with the known.
And I'll just jump in with the demonizing, because it's it's hard for many of us not to demonize unethical behavior, and that we would put all of the unethical behavior on one person, on Trump, and blame him for everything. And it's easy to get stuck in this extreme because it has some truth in it. And therefore we can justify it. And when I was thinking about it, it also has a sense of feeling better than, like a conceit that comes with it. If somebody is demonized as unethical, I'm then on the side of ethical and better than, or a kind of certainty that attaches itself to that view.
And that flip side of that coin, idealizing, I know I've said this many times, but I just experience it quite a bit, which is this pull to find someone, something that I can idealize, that I can follow in these times of uncertainty and these scary, difficult times. And that's fine. Maybe that's just human nature. Well, not human. I think about the ants or the bees, and they're following the queen. And I mean, it's just built in. But actually with us humans, I don't know about the ants, but no one is all good or all bad. There's no perfect someone to guide us through this.
Right. And if we even look at it in a Buddhist context, there's even one person is not one thing. So we really can't keep trying to get to the one thing and blame or shame that, or exalt it or uplift it.
Although it sure is seductive.
And we do it. That's the thing.
We do it. We do.
Yeah.
So the other one we pulled out here is experimenting and staying with the known. And I can feel some, as nostalgia is actually the word I feel, nostalgia for the days when things were different politically, when people spoke in, not didn't use cruel words about other people. I mean, all kinds of nostalgia when I could go to school and it was a safe place to go. I mean, all kinds of nostalgia. Um, and but here we are, and we actually don't, this is a big transition and we don't know how it's going to end. Um, why don't you take it from there, Linda?
Well, yeah, we haven't seen this movie before. I can see myself rereading books or re-looking at movies where I know the ending, that I feel some kind of sense of, that I know what's going to happen, and we don't know what's going to happen with this. And it takes some risk to experiment and to find a new playbook, to actually change our perceptions, and to look at the way others are holding their contrary perceptions, and how do we meet in the middle on this. I think it's going to take some creativity, and also this is a tenet of the Dharma, that it's going to change. We're going to change from this. We don't know really how
Or when.
or when.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or to what. So we're leaving you with the question. Not any of you. I laughed because it's one of those unanswerable questions.
Yes, it's a paradox, unanswerable question we're leaving you with.
But how to find the middle way, or maybe how to find moments in the middle, or perspectives when we're living in an atmosphere of such extremes and divisiveness. So when you know the answer to the question, let me know.
We'll have 10 minutes at the end of the session for people to speak up. Okay.